Hey there, wake up. It's Means Morning News. Just after 11 a.m. on the East Coast, it's the Friday show, and I'm the damn newsman, Sam Sachs, reporting on all things related to dams. My damn mic working? Which damn camera do I stare at? One of the most popular union leaders in the country is now having serious doubts about President Joe Biden's 2024 campaign. Reuters reported that United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain convened an emergency meeting Thursday night with other top officials in the union to discuss the Biden problem. The wire service added that the union is, quote, considering its next steps. Under Fain, the UAW endorsed Biden back in January, but a lot has changed since then, especially in the last 2 weeks after Biden's debate debacle and the White House's inability to calm concerns about his candidacy and chances of beating Donald Trump. The president attempted to restore some confidence in his bid during a press conference Thursday night, following the end of the NATO summit in Washington. But leading into the event, Biden again stepped in it, accidentally calling Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky Mr. Putin. And then about an hour later, during his press conference, he referred to his vice president, Kamala Harris, as Vice President Trump.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
Okay, not exactly the most egregious mistakes, but mistakes that carry added weight when everybody is watching the president for some assurances about his cognitive abilities. While Biden allies gave him high marks for his performance during the rest of the press conference, the bar was exceptionally low. And Biden's frail, quiet voice and tendency to trail off and end his sentences with garbled words was still evident. And immediately afterward, 3 more elected Democrats in the House came forward and called on him to get out of the race, bringing the total to 16. CBS News reports that as many as dozens of more Democrats could do the same thing over the weekend, now that the NATO leaders have gone home. Biden did seem to soften his stance, though, about leaving the race, telling reporters he'd consider quitting if his advisors told him there was no chance of winning, which polling suggests right now is indeed the case. And he also said that his delegates could vote their conscience, opening up the possibility of a revolt against him at the Democratic National Convention next month. Although, at the same time, Politico reported that Biden is phoning individual delegates to test their loyalty in hopes of staving off any floor challenge in Chicago. The UAW rescinding their endorsement of Biden or calling on him to get out of the race could be the death blow to the campaign. Last December, the union became one of the largest labor organizations in the U.S. to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. That stance has put the union in the crosshairs of its federal monitor, Neil Barofsky. That's according to reporting from the Detroit News and Dropsite News. Barofsky was appointed by a court in 2021 to monitor the union after top officials were found guilty of corruption. The UAW has since reformed itself, introducing a one-member, one-vote system that led to the election of Shawn Fain, whose clean, above-board stewardship has left Barofsky with little to do. That was until the union called for a ceasefire, at which point Barofsky, a staunch supporter of Israel, started phoning and writing letters to Fain expressing concern about the position, communications that fall well outside Barofsky's jurisdiction as a federal monitor. Borofsky claimed that he was doing the outreach in his personal, not professional capacity, and the union basically told him to fuck off. In February, a UAW attorney wrote to Borofsky, quote, "Your call to President Fain on an issue so blatantly outside of the monitor's jurisdiction was inappropriate, as your office holds disproportionate power over the UAW, and even a strictly personal sharing of opinion implicitly implicates such power dynamic. We ask that your office be respectful of the guardrails on your role and refrain from any further communications of the sort discussed in this email." Instead of backing off, though, Borofsky launched what appears to be a sham investigation into the UAW this week, accusing Fain of making decisions to benefit his partner and her sister and demanding the union turn over documents. The UAW said that the documents request was, quote, "massively broad and contained, quote, the most highly sensitive, privileged, and collective bargaining strategy documents that the union holds." So it appears we have a rogue federal monitor who's letting their personal support for Israel's ethnic cleansing campaign motivate a retaliation effort against the UAW. We must protect the president. Sean Fain, not Joe Biden. Don't care about Joe Biden. Now, an update from the French democracy factory, where uncertainty persists about what the new government will look like after centrist President Emmanuel Macron lost his majority in snap elections earlier this month. A coalition of leftist parties encompassing communists, socialists, and Greens, known as the New Popular Front, won the most seats in the contest. And now, labor leaders are calling on workers to get in the streets and demand that those results are respected by Macron by aligning with the New Popular Front to form a left-wing government. The General Secretary of the CGT Union, one of the major labor confederations in France with over 650,000 members, said, quote, "There must be popular citizens' pressure so that the election's results are respected." That call was echoed by the head of another French labor union, the CFDT, who said, quote, "To strike is sometimes the only way to be able to unblock a situation." Working people in France have a chance to really apply some pressure on the new government, which is set to open its session in less than a week. Later this month, the country is hosting the dang Olympics, which could be disrupted by waves of labor strikes. So far, the unions aren't ready to take that step. They said there are no plans for strikes during the Olympics, but that could change if Macron refuses to bend the knee to the left. The French working class has been sharpening their picketing skills over the last year, with mass demonstrations in the streets and rolling clashes with police to protest Macron's plans to raise the retirement age in the country. A brand new reason to hate Bitcoin just dropped. Time magazine published a report this week about a crypto mining facility whose noise pollution is poisoning a small town in Texas. The outlet spoke to scores of people in Granbury, Texas, who are suffering from ailments such as hypertension, heart palpitations, chest pain, vertigo, tinnitus, migraines, and panic attacks, all stemming from a loud hum that permeates the town coming from the Bitcoin mining operation. The mine is owned by Marathon Digital Holdings, one of the biggest Bitcoin producers in the world. It contains more than 160 metal shipping containers packed to the brim with computers, more than 30,000 of them in total in the facility, that are constantly doing what's known as proof of work mining, which produces Bitcoins. One Bitcoin is currently valued at the wildly inflated price of over $58,700, which explains why these mining operations can be so lucrative, generating billions of dollars in revenue. More than 130 commercial-scale Bitcoin mining operations are now set up across the US. The problem is running all these computers at once, constantly, requires enormous amounts of energy. So much energy that it's undermining efforts to reduce carbon emissions. Currently, Bitcoin mining uses up over 2% of all electricity generated in the US, which is the equivalent of adding an extra entire state worth of energy consumers. And by 2030, it's expected that Bitcoin mining will account for almost 10% of energy consumption in the US. It's also loud as hell, mainly due to all the fans that have to be running to keep the computers cool. This is from Time. Quote, in order to cool the machines, the site's operators attached thousands of fans to the containers, which churned constantly, emitting a vicious buzz. As more machines were switched on, the noise sounded like a ceiling fan, then a leaf blower, then a jet engine. It consumed afternoon dog walks and revved through cloudless nights, vibrating the trailer homes of many of the low-income residents who live blocks from the facility. Those residents have measured the noise coming out of the mine at over 90 decibels, a level that the CDC says can cause health damage, and above the 85 decibel limit allowed under Texas state law, which is the highest allowed in the country. Instead of shutting down the operations, though, the police just impose fines that are easily paid off through Bitcoin profits. And this week, a jury in Texas acquitted the site manager at the mine of dozens of noise violations after the defense claimed that the sound readings that showed the mine breaking the law were inaccurate and somehow politically motivated. Time noted that decades of deregulation related to sound ordinances have left the community toothless to fight back against the Bitcoin miners. And it's only getting worse. Quote, Bitcoin lobbying groups are attempting to pass pro-Bitcoin mining bills in state legislatures across the country, which would exempt similar operations from noise ordinances and local zoning laws. People have reported similar symptoms near Bitcoin mines in Arkansas and Williston, North Dakota. Ultimately, Granbury is just one canary of several in the proverbial mine. So let me get this straight. We're setting back efforts to avoid climate change and doing mass noise poisoning for what here? So that trust fund libertarians can speculate with their crap coins? Honestly, China had the right idea when they banned this nonsense. Friends, we made it to Friday, but we can't start the weekend without first getting rid of the dang trash. So let's get right to it. This week's Rich Dick is... It's Mr. Beast. That's the stage name of Jimmy Donaldson, the content creator who built an empire on YouTube making big splashy videos that have amassed 26 billion views and generated hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth for him personally. He's used that wealth to start a number of businesses selling things like burgers and chocolate. And like any capitalist, Mr. Beast is now setting his sights on politics. This week, he announced his plans to run for president in the future. Mr. Beast is not 35 yet, so he has to wait. He's only 26 now, but based on what he said his presidency would look like, it'd be easy to mistake him for being 12. This is what he said on Twitter. Quote, if I were president, I wouldn't care about party lines. I'd just always truly make the American people my number one priority. For problems I'm ignorant in, I'd have experts from the left and right advise me on them and try to find the middle ground that's best for America. Wouldn't be viable, don't care about doing things just because my party says I should, and I would focus on uniting the country instead of dividing it. Anyway, we can pick this up in 15 years when I'm old enough to run. Aha! How about we don't pick this up instead? Because this is just total nonsense. Oh, I'm just going to talk to experts on the left and on the right and find the middle ground. My dude, have you talked to so-called experts on the right? There's no such thing. They're just cranks that want to murder LGBTQ plus people, bring back feudalism, start a nuclear war with China, and burn as much fossil fuel as humanly possible. There is no seeking a middle ground there. And to the extent that there is, it's what we already have right now in this country. Mr. Beast thinks he's qualified to be president because of acts of charity, or what he calls philanthrotainment. His videos often feature Squid Game-style competitions in which working-class people vie for life-changing sums of money, doing absurd, difficult, and at times demeaning activities. Other videos elevate Mr. Beast into a white savior who goes around the world helping the impoverished access clean water or housing. All noble ventures, sure, except when they're done merely to build a brand and generate clicks on YouTube and thus more revenue and wealth for Mr. Beast. These videos also are as shallow as Mr. Beast's politics. They never feature social commentary on why it is that people are impoverished or the forces that are conspiring to keep them that way. They never give credit to the grassroots organizing confronting those forces. Instead, he just parachutes into an issue, films himself dumping some money on it, and then moves on to the next thing as though everything was settled. Like a recent video he did where he paid for 1,000 people to get cataract eye surgery. In that video, he notes that half the population with curable blindness doesn't have access to the surgery. But he doesn't explain why that is. How we have a healthcare system based on profit-seeking and exploitation. It would have been a perfect opportunity to radicalize his audience and steer them toward worthwhile social justice campaigns. But instead, the takeaway is only Mr. Beast, or other rich people like him, can fix this. This type of charity will never pose a challenge to the oligarchy that is driving inequality, the class Mr. Beast is now firmly entrenched in. Don't want to threaten branding deals with Amazon or with Samsung or Zaxby's. So yeah, I'm not buying a Mr. Beast presidency. And if I wanted some warmed over, no label style centrism from a celebrity president that will only preserve the status quo for the rich and powerful, I'd vote for The Rock. Mr. Beast, you are this week's Rich Dick. Okay, gang, listen up. We're again running low on sunnies, so we need you all to step up. Wake up, film the sunrise, send it in, and you'll be accepted into the paradise of Valhalla. Or at least receive some gratitude from me for helping to keep this segment going. So capture that sunrise, let us know where it's from, and email it to the address below, submissions@means.media. All right, the show ends this morning with a sunrise from Portland, Maine again. It was sent in by Stacy. Enjoy. Thank you, Stacy. Show's over. Thank you for watching, and thanks to the team behind the scenes. Please sign up for Means TV and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels and follow us on social media. One day capitalism will fall, but until then, we're going to be right here. See you next week.